I welcome you to another Tuesday teaching to Learn with Joes, an Academy of Knowledge Economy. My name is Josephine, your online, or what we say, digital educator. As you're already aware, I hold a Ph.D., that is a doctoral degree in philosophy of religion and theology. So every Tuesdays like this, I teach on one of the core courses within the complexity of philosophy of religion and theology. On Fridays, I discuss lessons of life issues that I call Friday Tonic. This is the last Tuesday of this month of August, and I really appreciate God for seeing us through all the months that have passed by and this August that is going very soon. Next Friday is going to be the beginning of September, what we call Ember months, very crucial months to the end of the year. So on Friday Tonic, Lessons of Life, I'll be starting on philosophical aspect, that is lessons of life that are philosophical. Not just philosophical, but they are great lessons of life that we need to embrace and practice. Before I continue on today's journey, which is the last Tuesday I'll be talking on, I've been teaching on some subjects, systematic theology, and all aspects that God. So today I'll be teaching on God's creation. That is God's providence. God's creation. That is God's providence. Last Tuesday, I remember I explained the Holy Trinity, God in three persons. We're not talking about three gods, just one God, one true God. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Jesus Christ emphasizes. The whole of scriptures emphasizes. Right from Genesis to Revelation, we see the Holy Trinity in action. So I'm talking about God's creations today. That is God's providence. But before I continue on this teaching, please let's join Learn with Joes. Like I said before the advert, I'll be teaching on God's creation today, which is God's providence. But as usual with this channel, I'll be presenting some slides from PowerPoint. So hold on for me while I carry you into the presentation. Doctrine of creation, God's providence. In Christian theology, creation refers to God bringing the universe into existence out of nothing, ex nihilo, out of nothing. The biblical account of creation is found in Genesis, which describes how God spoke the world into existence in 6 days. The doctrine of creation emphasizes that God is the ultimate source of all that exists, and that the universe is not eternal, but had a beginning at a point in time when God created it. It contrasts with other worldviews, such as certain forms of pantheism, which view the universe as eternal and God as simply a part of it. Or when we talk about doctrine of evolution, the Bang theory. The Bible teaches that creation was God, reflecting the goodness and wisdom of God. When you read Genesis 1, verse 31, you say this. This means that the natural world, including human beings, has inherent value and worth as part of God's creation. However, the doctrine of the fall, which describes humanity's rebellion against God and the resulting corruption of creation, emphasizes that the world is marred by sin and then in need of redemption. Christians also believe that God's ongoing providence sustains and upholds creation, and that one day, God will bring about a new creation in which everything will be restored to its original goodness. And this is clearly stated in Revelation 21, verses 1 to 4. The doctrine of creation has important implications for Christian ethics and environmentalism. It reminds believers that the natural world is not to be exploited or abused, but to be cherished, to be protected as a gift from God. It also calls Christians to be good stewards of the earth, using its resources responsibly and working to alleviate suffering and injustice that affect both human beings and the natural world. The doctrine of creation affirms that the natural world is not just physical reality or a result of blind chance, but a good and intentional creation of God. That is, God was intentional in creating the world we live in. As such, the created world has an intrinsic value and dignity that should be respected, should be protected, and should be cherished. One of the ways Christians can fulfill this responsibility by being good stewards of the environment. Christians are called to care for the earth and all its inhabitants. Those who study ecotheology or the environmentalists, they understand this perspective very well. It means taking practical steps to reduce waste, conserve resources, and promote sustainable development. Christians are also called to advocate for policies and practices that protect the environment and address climate change and pollution. Human beings should realize that we are not the only one created by God into this earth. And so other people, they have the rights as we have the right. So we need to be careful and protect the rights of this environment. The doctrine of creation reminds Christians the importance of social justice. As stewards of God's creation, Christians are called to work towards justice and equality. And that is very, very far behind nowadays. People are not thinking about justice and equality. They are selfish, be thinking of themselves alone. For all people, especially the poor and the marginalized, it includes addressing issues such as poverty, hunger, and access to clean water, all interconnected and environmental concerns. Furthermore, the doctrine of creation also emphasizes the dignity and worth of all human beings as part of God's good creation. This means that every person, regardless of race, ethnicity, or social status, has inherent value and deserves respect and dignity. It has important implications for human rights, social justice, and the sanctity of life. In summary, the doctrine of creation is a foundational belief for Christians that affirms the goodness and intentional design of the natural world. As stewards of this creation, Christians are called to care for the environment. We are called to promote social justice. We are called to affirm the dignity and worth of every human being. Let's look at God's providence. God's providence is the belief that God is actively involved in the world, sustaining and governing all things according to his will. Providence is rooted in the belief that God is sovereign, all-powerful, and has a plan and purpose for the world and everything in it. The Bible teaches that God is actively involved in the world, working all things together for the good of those who love him. This means that even amid adverse circumstances and suffering, Christians can trust that God is in control and is working for the ultimate good. God's providence can be seen in several ways. One way is through his preservation of the natural order, including the laws of physics, the cycle of seasons, and the rhythms of life. God's providence can also be seen in his protection of his people, as he guides and provides for them in times of need. Furthermore, God's providence can be seen in his sovereignty over history, purpose of the world, and working towards fulfilling and the planting, the rise and fall of nations. That is the actions of individuals and even the most seemingly random events. The doctrine of providence has significantly implications for the Christian life. It calls believers to trust goodness and wisdom, even amid those circumstances. It also encourages Christians to seek God's will and guidance in all aspects of life, recognizing that God is actively involved in the world and working for the good. And we can see this in the Lord's Prayer that Jesus Christ himself taught us. He said, let the will of God be done on earth as it is in heaven. So we must always seek the will of God. The doctrine of providence also calls Christians to be agents of God's providence in the world. It means working for justice, like I said initially, promoting peace, and caring for those in need as we seek and participate in God's plan to redeem and restore the world. Many leaders have failed in this because they're given the responsibility to take care of their citizens. And are they doing it rightly? That's a question for citizens of the world in the various countries to decipher and answer. In summary, God's providence is the belief that God is actively involved in the world. I've said that before. And we need to. God will guide and work to participate in his plan for redemption. We all know to walk along with God in his plan for the redemption and the restoration of the world. God's providence is not deterministic at all. Humans have free will and are responsible for their action, even as God sees all through them to accomplish his purposes. God's providence is not an excuse for complacency. While Christians can trust in God's sovereignty and goodness, this does not mean we should sit back and do nothing. Instead, we are called to actively participate in God's work in the world, working for justice, peace, and the flourishing of all people. God's providence does not exempt us from suffering. Because some people say, okay, why are we suffering? Why is there so much evil in the world? No, it does not exempt us from suffering. But why God is working all things together for the good of his people, this does not mean we will never experience hardship or pain. Christians can trust that even while suffering, God is with us and is working to bring about ultimate good. And this is clearly stated in the scripture. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, there is no trial or temptation that is uncommon to man. But God is faithful. He will never allow anyone to suffer more than you can bear. And even with it, He will provide a way of escape. And that is God for you. God's providence is not limited to the present moment. God's providence extends to all of history and the future. And Christians can trust that God is working to bring about the ultimate fulfillment of His plan to the world, for the world. It gives us hope for the future and a sense of purpose in the present as we participate in God's work of redemption and restoration. I think we understand far more better now God's providence for us. If you love what I've shared, or you have something either in tandem or contradictory, please reach back to me. Just check my description link for my email if you don't know it already, or the comment below. Just comment. And for any other information I want you to know, check the description link. You will get it there. I wish you a very lovely week. Like I said, today is the last Tuesday of September. By next Friday, we'll be entering into September, an ember month, where we have to be very careful. And that is why I'm starting for my Friday tonic on thinking, waxing philosophical, and maybe sometimes theological, as lessons of life, so that we might be aware of what to embrace. Embracing such will be very, very beneficial for each and every one of us. Thank you. I remain yours, Josephine.